Well, hello, my YouTube friends. So this is part 3 of this clutch cable saga. And so I use these snap ring pliers to remove this snap ring, and it was facing like about right here. And there is a top and a bottom, because there's a sharp edge and a rolled over edge on the way it's stamped. And depending on what direction the pressure is being applied, there's a right and a wrong way to install these. I don't even know if I had that in correctly or not, or if there's enough pressure to matter. Okay, so we're going to see if we can remove the ball and ramp assembly. Or maybe I'll just pop this up. Okay, I'm going to need 2 hands for this, so I'm going to stop the video and I'm going to remove this end of the cable from that hook. You saw me lift it up and turn it over. These are the ramps. There's 3 of them cut at an angle. There's 3 ball bearings with 3 matching ramps. Okay, hold on a second. Okay, a lot easier with 2 hands, but here's the cable and here's the ball and ramp assembly. So this little piece right here hooks on the cable, right, and engages that stud at the end, whatever you want to call that, right, and then this piece, you know, hooks in here. So it's a 2-piece assembly whenever you get ready to take yours apart. Now the ball and ramp, these ball bearings, I don't want to lose these. That would be bad. And last time I took this apart and put it back together, which I've done a few times now, I held them in. I put a dab of grease to hold them in place. Okay, now this. Okay, now let's line up square to the cover again, so that we can note the position of the ramp half. Because remember, it's a ball and ramp. I don't know if that'll be critical during reassembly, but I want to know like where it's at, and you know, and it doesn't hurt to drop it back in the same way it came out, because this piece, oh, okay, it's got that. There's only one way it can go in. Okay, so I'm going to wipe everything down, clean it up, and then I'm going to unscrew this right here and take the cable out. Okay, so my hands are getting oily. All right, hold on. Okay, so I got this piece taken apart. Is it in there? Yeah. I'm going to wipe it out a little bit. I'm going to temporarily use the old gasket. I'm going to reinstall it as is, just to keep dust out of the clutch assembly. You saw how dusty my garage gets, even though I don't anticipate running the table saw. Okay, now let's talk about why this piece failed. Yes, it's because there are shitty materials used in its construction. But the second reason is, okay, so let's examine this piece right here, the ball and ramp assembly. All right, so the cable comes in right here and hooks on that, and when you squeeze the clutch lever, it pulls it. Okay, so when this rotates, you can see how it widens, right? It separates right there. So that is where the clutch diaphragm spring, or the clutch springs, are compressed. So here they're compressed, here they're at rest. So here they're compressed and the clutch is able to slip. And I don't know if you call that engaged or disengaged, but if you're at a stoplight or you're getting ready to go, you know, into first gear or whatever, when you squeeze the handle, it goes like this and compresses the clutch spring. When you're just driving or in neutral, right, you're just cruising in 3rd gear, 38 miles an hour, the clutch is released, you got only one hand on the handlebar, it's in this position right here, and the springs are not compressed. Okay, so this is my original diaphragm spring assembly. And you can see it's not in the motorcycle. This is the clutch diaphragm spring that came with the motorcycle. And so what I did was I upgraded to a Barnett coil spring pressure plate. Now these 6 springs are the heavy springs, and the ones that I have in use are like the light springs. Now you can use, you know, any combination as long as you do it like equally. Let's say if you want a little bit more force, you would take out 2 of the light springs and put in 2 heavy ones like across from each other, right? Or if you wanted more than that, then you would take 3 of the other ones and have 3 like in a Y shape. And more than that, 4, you know, would be 2 and 2 like over here. As long as you do it evenly around there, you can mix and match your heavy and your light springs. Now these are all the heavy ones. I got all 6 of the light ones, however much pressure they provide. So I have more clamping force on the clutch plates, and I upgraded to Kevlar clutch plates. And you can see all of this in my 9-part series on my primary drive service. So every time I squeeze the cable, this goes like that, or I squeeze the lever and it goes like this and the cable pulls. Now, this is the first cable that broke on the end right here the way this one did. The other 2 cables, the eye right here, the eye itself cracked and broke. And I was trying to remember, at first I didn't remember how many times had broke, you know, too many, way too many. And I didn't put 2 and 2 together, like why the first one lasted a really long time and the next 2 broke. Presumably that's because I drove for a while with the factory diaphragm spring. And then once I put these heavier ones in, then they started breaking on a regular basis. So that's why the cheap materials came into play. Now perhaps the factory chosen materials, a cheap shoddy pot metal eye socket, was enough for the factory diaphragm spring and not enough for these, for the upgraded coil springs. So in my opinion, that should not have, upgrading to those, you know, you can call it an upgrade, upgrading to the coil springs should not have caused this failure. I mean, yes, it's a little bit harder. I didn't really notice it squeezing the lever. And whenever the lever started getting hard to squeeze, I would oil up the lever assembly. I did not take it apart and oil the cable. And then once it had oil in the lever, then it would squeeze real nice, real easy. I mean, so this is using leverage, right? It's using ramps. Okay, it's not just pulling it like this, like straight up full force. Okay, it's using a mechanical advantage, right? Those ramps. And the coil springs are not compressed to where they're like bottoming out on each other. Okay, so it's going to be compressed a little bit when you assemble it, and then it's going to be compressed a little bit more when you go like that. You know, but it's not that much. I mean, apparently it is too much for the factory piece. So I'm still waiting on the replacement. It's an aftermarket cable, waiting for that to be delivered. I ordered it from JMP Cycles. And so I'll say mystery solved, I guess. Why do my cables keep breaking? That's because I went with the heavier coil spring. Now, one other thing that I mentioned in that other series, and I'll go ahead and say it now. When upgrading to coil springs, save your factory diaphragm spring setup. If you lose this and it comes time to service your clutch, you will have to buy another one, because and you'll see it when I adjust the clutch at the end of this series. The Barnett pressure plate that works with the coil springs covers up this nut in the middle. And then you can't get pressure on it. If you try to loosen this nut in the middle, it'll the whole thing will turn. So you have to remove your aftermarket coil spring setup and then put this one on just to loosen that big nut that's in the middle right here. Otherwise, you'll never be able to get your clutch basket off. So if you upgrade to coil springs, do not lose your factory diaphragm spring setup. And if you upgrade to coil springs, learn from my experience, do not use the factory clutch cable. You're going to have to upgrade to a better cable. All right, so that's going to wrap up this video, part 3. When the other cable gets here, we'll look more closely at it. And hopefully that'll be soon, because the motorcycle's been down now for a few days. So, all right, my friends, you have a good day.